right. We are back. It is live. It is lovely Make Me Day plus 3, also known as day 335 of the 15-day lockdown. So, by popular request, a few people asked me, can you do some CDC data breakdown of the other comorbidities and all that other stuff? And I kind of figured, maybe it's kind of time we combine that with a short presentation on all the data. And it's a time we had a little chat with all the Karens who have made a few not so small demands on us, and this is for them. So let's get to it. So we are at this point where, of course, they're going to say COVID killed 400,000. Well, that's what they say. And of course, that's always the justification to continue all this and continue the fear and continue the control. And if you're watching this and you're kind of skeptical as to the argument for just ending this, well, I'll assume you're legitimately afraid. And of course, it's necessary to point out that the root cause of fear is lack of knowledge and uncertainty. That's how you get afraid. That's just human nature. So it's time to take the vaccine for the fear, also known as data. And of course, in God we trust, all others send data. Now, this is from the CDC. This is the provisional death count week by week. This graph starts in January of 2020 and it goes to the present. Now, there is a black arrow that indicates where the lockdown started, and there is a red arrow that indicates where the masks started. So that's what happened. That's deaths, which of course, deaths follow hospitalizations, hospitalizations follow infections. That's just, how the train is built. So where they died obviously matters, and this should provide some annoying clues on the real transmission vector. And no, indoor dining, weddings, church services, and grocery shopping did not kill grandma. Notice, according to the CDC, this isn't me, this is according to the CDC, the operative term is, quote, all deaths involving COVID-19, end quote. Now, 283,000 of these were in hospitals in inpatient settings, and 94,000 of these were in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. Okay? That should be a clue. And of course, 28,000 died at home, 12,000 were in hospice. So that's kind of, you're on the way out anyway. And of course, there's all the other numbers if you want to pause this and review it, which you should. So, comorbidities matter. This is from the CDC's own data set. It notes here that one of the comorbidities for COVID-19 up at the top under the heading respiratory diseases is influenza and pneumonia. That was operative for 197,104 of these deaths that involved COVID, okay? So they're pretty clear. This is the flu, right? That's typically how, you end up dying when that combination goes. And of course, there's chronic respiratory diseases, which that's not COVID caused. There's adult respiratory distress syndrome. That's not COVID. Respiratory failure, definitely COVID. Respiratory arrest, maybe COVID. So, of course, the data series continues. And obviously, hypertensive diseases, isometric heart disease, cardiac arrest, cardiac arrhythmia, heart failure, cerebrovascular diseases, other diseases of the circulatory system, not on the list of symptoms of COVID. Neither is sepsis, malignant neoplasms, diabetes or obesity, and Alzheimer's, and vascular and unspecified dementia, or renal failure. And definitely not unintentional and intentional injury, poisoning, and other adverse events, of which there were 16,046, of which George Floyd is one of those. You all saw the footage. It didn't look like COVID killed him. So if you have any doubts, you can go back and watch the George Floyd footage again if you don't believe me. And again, this is the CDC. This isn't me. This is the CDC. And just to highlight that, COVID does not poison you or wreck your car or throw you off a building or kill you through slip and fall or whatever. I mean that's just a fact. I mean you gotta it's a stretch, to say that those were actual deaths caused by COVID. So conditions contributing to deaths where COVID-19 was listed on the death certificate. Yes, the CDC said that. That's the data series you just saw screenshots of. So, all told, out of the 400,000, 197,000 of them also had flu and pneumonia, 39,000 also had sepsis, 21,000 also had malignant neoplasm, 69,000 also had diabetes. COVID does not give you diabetes, nor does it give you obesity, nor does it give you Alzheimer's, nor does it give you vascular and unspecified dementia, nor does it give you renal failure, wreck your car, or poison you. So all told, there were 240 some odd thousand of other causes that COVID does not do. So here's the takeaway. Lose weight and eat right. COVID didn't put that extra can of Coke in your shopping cart, and your mask certainly didn't prevent you from putting that can of Coke in your shopping cart, nor did the lockdowns put, all those 2-liter bottles of Coke in your shopping cart. So a lot of these things are, with the exception of Alzheimer's and dementia, pretty much things that, are caused by what goes in your pie hole. I mean, of course, that's other than the flu. So here we are. Things COVID does do. 162,906 had respiratory failure. Please do not mistake me for what I'm saying here. COVID is a real thing. It is a serious bad disease. But the numbers aren't quite adding up as the screaming reporters are reporting them. So, by the way, the CDC has also said this, which is fatal to Cuomo worship. And it tells you how it works, okay? And basically one of the things it does say is do not compare numbers, do not compare different states to different states. They say don't do it. So when everybody goes out there and says Cuomo and Lamont did so good, they did this, they did that, the CDC is telling you don't do that. And here, if you want to pause it, you can read it yourself. Like there's certain delays in counting it and coding it, and and of course they're subject to change. And a lot of these numbers, like that 400,000, I mean, that could go up or down. So it's important you know that. Get familiar with it, and that's what you want to do. So at the beginning, you take a good look at this. I know it's a trip down memory lane, but this is what we were sold. We basically were told we got to do this, and if we don't do this, it's going to be real bad. Well, obviously we did do it, and that's why this video is here, and that's why we're having this conversation. And of course, the weaponized hypothesis was, here's the R0, here's how fast it's going to spread, and mathematically, by day 15, you've pretty much, it's just an exponential function. So obviously, the data we will show you speaks for itself. And of course, the weaponized theory is also that if we did no social distancing, everybody was going to die. Like, we would have dead people everywhere, and we had to do this. We had to do the 15 days. And yeah, this is what we're all sold. I mean, I was on board with it right at the beginning. I'm like, this is going to be real bad. And it's a problem, and we should probably not go anywhere and just let this thing, peter out and die off. So here's where we are. This is from the CDC. This is what happened in terms of COVID-19 cases reported from Connecticut. And here is where you got your masks and your lockdown. Okay? That's a fact. This is no longer, speculation. This is not a model or a projection which IHME used to, convince all of us to do this. This is what happened. You cannot say that the lockdowns or the masks or the restrictions affected any of this. You cannot say it flattened the curve, because the curve is there and you're looking at it, and it didn't happen the way you were sold. Here's New Jersey. That arrow is when New Jersey put in the masks. Okay, the trend was already going down. New Jersey cannot take credit for that thing. You see, just because there's correlation does not mean there's causation, but if there's no correlation at all, there definitely isn't causation. So that's New Jersey. And this is CDC data. This is what New Jersey reported. This is it. This is what you got. Hawaii, same thing. They implemented the masks, and they did nothing. Actually, it would appear by this data, this isolated, island state, it would, well, the curve would look different if the theory was right, wouldn't it? And this is more Hawaii. They didn't just require masks inside, they required masks outside. You see? And of course, if the theory was right, the curve would go down, wouldn't it? And of course, New York City, the big masked apple, right there. April 17th, they put this in right when the curve was going down. And this is Los Angeles versus Sweden, who did nothing. Sweden was an excellent control, if you would. And this is a series of all the dates when they implemented all of this other stuff. And this is Israel versus Sweden. Israel had the lockdown fever, and look at that curve. How about that? They even had curfews in 40 communities, so that data speaks for itself, doesn't it? And stupid is as Kentucky ignored its own data. This is where Kentucky put in all the masks. Now, you have a problem here, and the problem is starting to appear very consistent. And this is Argentina. Don't cry, masked Argentina. That curve is parabolic. It's going all the way up. There is zero flattening of the curve at all occurring at all. So Connecticut versus Malawi. Malawi not only said there will be no lockdown, they also have this drug called ivermectin, widely available because the water has parasites in it. So you'll notice Malawi has, according to IHME, 3.6 or 8 deaths per 100,000 from COVID, and to Connecticut's 191. So much for the sector rules being justified. That should speak for itself, but if you need more, here it is. This is Connecticut versus Malawi versus Sweden and South Dakota. South Dakota is the baseline do-nothing United States, and of course, South Dakota, working out a lot better. Sweden, working out a lot better. They've actually had days of zero infections. So, and of course, there's Malawi just chugging along and beating everybody. There must be something to this ivermectin thing, wouldn't you think? And of course, let's just add New York, because Fauci says, it's his favorite. They're doing everything right. And they're actually doing worse than we are. So that should speak for itself. Did I do Mississippi yet? No, I did not. So that's where they got their mask mandate. And yes, I didn't do the Philippines either, and that's where they got their mask mandate. And if you want to compare France, Spain, and Sweden, this is when, they started doing their iterations of crazy, and Sweden is just chugging along, just doing way better than they are. So here are the inescapable conclusions. The masks did nothing helpful. The lockdowns did nothing helpful. The sector rules and restrictions did nothing helpful. Your hypothesis was wrong. And COVID-19 sailed past all our safety theater toward herd immunity, as mathematically it would have with an R0 of 2.5 throughout the 15-day lockdown. And yes, even Cuomo was amazed that everybody got it at home. So why are we doing this? I don't know. You got to figure that out. So the data is in. And this is not a model. And you have to understand the difference between what happened in the real world as it was observed and a model. So the model is what they project will happen. That's when IHME came out and said, we're going to lose 2 million Americans. And of course, obviously it wasn't terribly reported because it's not sensational to, admit that maybe there's something wrong. But IHME was having a lot of problems. They were trying to say that there were different numbers of hospital beds that actually existed on different various dates when their model even started. So you're not going to kill or endanger anyone by not wearing a mask in and of itself. That's just what the data says. That you saw the data, you saw the curves, you saw the not flattening at all. So your special hours, your sector rules, your capacity limits, they failed to perform as they were sold. They just didn't work. And the theory that lockdowns, masks, and restrictions would stop the spread or flatten the curve was provably wrong. I just showed you all of those curves. All of them. And they speak for themselves. So, if anything, these measures have made the case for the conclusion that they made COVID worse and dangerously so. So, if you are afraid of COVID and you take a look at these curves, you should demand we stop this. That's just the logical conclusion. Are you done yet? I guess is the question. And you really, really ought to be done because this is real bad. And I kind of hope that you'll think about this. Go back, look at these slides. The curves speak for themselves. So the next time you think I want to bother someone for not wearing a mask, or I want to bother someone because their business isn't complying, you think again. The science does not support what you're doing. In any event, I'm hoping you're all doing well, and I'm hoping we can get back to a sane normal. And I'll talk to you soon.